thank you so much for having me here. I am not completely sure, but I consider this place as my home. So I am in home today, but thank you. It's a big pleasure and honor to, to be part of this conference. I have to say that this talk is going to be a little unusual, especially because, as you know, I work mainly in non-classical logic. I live in Buenos Aires, far, far away from here. So I have some possibility to explore some crazy ideas. Maybe you know some of them. But today I am going to focus on classical logic. So, and I'm going to introduce some experience that I had with Saul. Uh, I have to say that, oh, I miss a picture. I'm sorry. I have a really good picture of Saul in Buenos Aires with people that work in Buenos Aires, but we were really young. I don't remember the time. And it wasn't the first time that Saul came to Buenos Aires. I believe that it was the second time. The first time he gave three different talks, one in my faculty. Yes. I don't remember if you, Graham, come to my university. You gave the talks in the institute in Salaf, but not because my university is a little crazy. It's like a trip to the 60s. So maybe Saul was the only person that could go with you come here, not yeah. So it's a little crazy. So but the second time I asked to Saul to have a special meeting with only 5 or 6 people together in Sadaf in our institute and have maybe a 3-hour meeting talking about the outline of theory of truth. It was a great, great meeting. I learned a lot. And it's directly connected with our story in Buenos Aires. In the picture was Lavinia, was Lucas, Rosenblatt, Paula, Damian. These people work now in this topic as connected with the online, and it's part of our is part of our story. So I have to say, because of that, this lecture is going to be a little special. Uh, you know, maybe the main question of this conference is the first. Are semantic paradoxes a good reason to change the logic? And for me, at the first part of my life when was working about that, the answer was clearly yes. Connected with books of Graham, Hartree, and especially also with the Soul work, clearly was yes. But when I met Saul, as you know very well, he told me, not Eduardo, it's not a good reason to change the logic. So I feel surprised because I don't remember. When I start to prepare this talk, obviously I read the outline again. And now I feel that it's clear that in the outline, there are a lot of part of the outline that he say, this is classical logic. But for me, in that time, when we discussed these ideas, it was clearly a project where non-classicality was part of the trip. So today we are going to discuss these ideas, and I am going to try why maybe it's not possible to avoid to talk about classicality or classical logic with truth in a way. So you know very well, Tarski's gather result uh, do practically impossible to use classical logic to capture transparent truth. Yeah. So we know we work a lot during this time from the online to today. So we know very well that these are the options, or excluded middle of contraction are not valid, or explosion and model opponent are not valid, or if you explore substructural options, identity of reflexivity or transitivity or cut are not meta-valid in a way. So in a way, if you want to recover transparent truth, it's not possible to be classical in a way. So this is a quote, first quote of the outline, and it's clear in this case that the option in the outline, if you take the minimal fixed point as maybe the best option in order to capture truth, you are going to have some sentence, some pathological sentence that are not truth and non-truth. So this is the most initial important idea in order to maybe to change the logic. But, however, we have a lot of quotes that this is not the case, clearly. So we are not adopting a many value logic here, say so in this quote, in his construction. Another quote, the logic I am using is the ordinary classical logic. The partiality of the truth predicate does not require abandoning. And again, there is no need to revise classical logic or adopt intuitionistic restriction. So the quotes are completely clear. And maybe the most important part, 18 footnote. Maybe we could avoid about footnotes in papers, but this is really important, and it's completely clear that the ideas that Saul had were completely classical. In this quote, you remember well, he directly paid attention to Kleene option and the work of Kleene. And this is not a motivation in order to have a non-classicality. Well, the quote is really very well known. Maybe the last part, so well, he talked about change in logic and classical meta-language. This is part of the motivation. Maybe it's not possible to abandon classicality or classical meta-language. Well, my proposal in this talk is maybe we are not able to abandon classical logic in a way. There is a minimal sense in which classical logic is without these 15 years. So we are going to analyze these different options in order to capture transparent truth, and maybe in this kind of option, always classical logic appear in a way. So I am going to introduce the fixed point construction, but only in 10 seconds, because everybody knows that. Clearly, this is the motivation, the initial motivation, the idea to assert and say exactly the same as circumstances under which one may assert or deny a statement. And here the construction, you know very well, we have a language initially without any true predicate. We define in transfinite step a sequence of set of sentences that are not truth, are truth in the stage. At each stage, the truth value of a sentence containing the true predicate depend on the value defined in the previous state, and the process converges. This is the idea. A little more formal, the goal is define a partial true predicate that avoid paradox while preserving classical logic for grounded sentence. This is the key, the idea. So this is a way to present the construction. Obviously, we have different options in order to, we have different options in order to have the scheme. It's clearly, if you read the outline, that we have strong cleaning, weak cleaning, and supervalue solution options in order to analyze what is exactly truth. But a lot of time that I talked with Saul, he said, this is a mathematical construction. It's not a logic. It's not the logic. The logic is another. So, you know, for Saul, this indeterminacy about the pathological sentence, that does mean that there are propositions without a truth value. The idea is the classical sentence express propositions, and the logic is only about these kind of propositions. Well, maybe it's complicated to me to put this slide in this talk, because you are all logicians and know very well what is exactly classical logic, but believe me, it's not so clear, at least for me, and in a way, maybe in the outline, it's not so clear. So if you analyze what explicitly say Saul in the outline, he connect classicality with two values logics. In a way, pathological sentence receive the indeterminate, the value 0.5 or something like that. So, but the problem that we know very well, we can adopt two value models in order to express non-classical logic. It's clear, well, Graham present LP with relational semantics using only two values. So this is not at least a sufficient condition in order to have classicality. Another option, you can adopt strong clean evaluations in order to present, in a way, classical logic. At least if you consider classical logic the set of inference that are classically valid, you know, ST logic without transitivity can express this kind of stuff in three value models. So in a way, how many values you have in a logic is not a sufficient conditions in order to know exactly what is the logic. I am going to avoid to talk about that, but you know, in Buenos Aires, we introduced this path in order to have classicality, maybe recovering not only the set of classical inference that are valid, recovering all, well, transitivity here and meta-transitivity, blah, 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 blah. We switch the standard with between premise and conclusions. And using that, we can recover classicality practically in every level. If you have an extensional idea about what is a logic, maybe this is the option that is near to the classicality compared to another options. You know, we are in CUNY, so Graham, Chris Scrambler, and Brian Porter present in different different works some objection about that. In a way, at least in my way to understand that, they say, well, we need more classical logic because with this structure, it's not possible to apply the system of logic because you have to presuppose cut in the external way. If you don't have a way to have transitivity in the logic, it's not possible to apply this kind of logic. So more classicality in a way, even this option is not enough. But it's clear to me that Seoul is not saying that classical logic in the fixed point construction is that. If you met Seoul, he said that there is a way that we talk about logic in an informal way. It's not a formal system or this kind of stuff. Your stuff or ST stuff or it's a formal theory. It's not logic in the real way to talk about logic. Maybe we could use the classical distinction between Uten and Docken, and in a way, he's saying that we have to talk about the logic that we are using to talk about truth or something like that. And the construction, the theoretical construction around truth are not so important. So the logic that we in order to talk about transparent truth is have not to be modified if you have a new construction about the truth. Last years, connected with I believe that it was the last paper that Seoul published, no? The adoption paper in mind, something like that. And I am completely sure that Seoul was working about that. And even we, during the pandemic COVID situation, I organized a seminar online and Seoul came by Zoom to, in part of the discussion in Buenos Aires or in the internet. And the adoption problem maybe is part of the topic connected with this decision because the idea is we cannot modify the logic that we are using because the logic that we use presuppose modus ponens and some kinds of rule connected with classicality. If you don't have modus ponens, you don't have the possibility to use the structure if-then. So it's practically impossible to use rules, inference rules in particular. So, and you can learn these kind of rules. You know, these are the ideas that Seoul say a lot of time. So obviously you can have a logic without modus ponens, LP in a way. And we understand very well that. But it's clear that in another sense, in logic logic as we use logic, we have to have modus ponens in order to follow rules. Uh, in a way, I find a parallelism between these kind of ideas and the objection that I introduced about the hierarchy of developing Buenos Aires. Not we presuppose to have transitivity in order to apply the logic, and we presuppose to have modus ponens in order to use logic or inference rules. So it's clear that Saul avoid to change the logic, not only about the Newton level, even because he could say, well, the logic that we use is classical, but we have a theoretical stuff connected with the construction, the fixed point construction, and maybe we could change the logic in that level. But it is clear that if we talk, I believe that Kramer was the first that talked about logic of truth. Saul tried to avoid to use this kind of terminology, but the logic of truth, the rules that we use usually when talk about truth, are not closed by classicality. Excluded middle. If you consider the set of all the sentence, not only the propositions, it's clear that excluded middle is not part of the property that have this kind of set of sentence. So maybe Saul say, well, truth is not a logical notion, so maybe it's not necessary to consider this notion as a part of the topic. But in a way, what the people that work in this topic during this year, we consider the main question connected with truth is what kind of principles, logical principles, are allowed to use in this context if you have truth in the language. So in a way, the challenge was to discover or to propose in the theoretical level which are the principles. Here is not Hartree, but when I read the book of Hartree, clearly he tried. Well, he also came to Argentina, and in that time, it was the time that Hartree tried to get a new conditional with a kind of good properties, and well, good properties in a way mean properties that are connected with classicality in a way. So classicality appear again. So another argument that appear in the other is the Saul say a lot of time my construction have to be a construction that if I teach to somebody that he didn't know how to use the true predicate, the construction is enough to develop the capability to use truth. So maybe this is part of the key. So, but the process to teach or to learn truth, the external process, the idea that we have to capture the use of the rules, seems to presuppose excluded middle in a way. So maybe, again, the external logic have to be classical in a way. Maybe because of that, Soule considered that the construction is a mathematical construction, a formal construction, but the real logic is classical logic. There is another important argument against the connection between classical logic and the fixed point construction, and was made by Hartree. Hartree say, you know very well in the book of Hartree, the philosophical interpretation of the construction is another completely. The idea is this is non-classical logic, because it's not a logic about proposition, it's a logic about sentence. So for me was the most clearly idea that with non-classical logics. But Hartree say there is no extensionally correct way to divide sentences into those that express proposition and those that do not. Reason, relativity of the model. This is an important argument. So the truth value of the sentences in Kripke construction depend on underlying model chosen. As Hartree showed, the set theoretical assumption governing the models. And if you have different presupposition in set theoretical stuff, you are going to get different extension about truth. So this is one of the examples that Hartree gave. And clearly, the point is it's not possible internally to put the border between classicality and non-classicality. I was talking about you, Hartley. I'm sorry. So, Kripkean notion of sentence that does not express a proposition is neither semantically nor ontologically objective, say Hartley. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember how many years, but remember here, Hartley, Graham, and Soule gave a seminar in NYU about truth. I don't remember if they discussed this kind of argument, and I don't remember what was the reply of Soule about that, but clearly, I believe that Soule have to accept that all internal characterization must be relative to some set theoretical assumption, but the mathematical apparatus is being used to capture an informal notion of truth. So expressing a proposition would turn out to be a notion can be maybe extended indefinitely according to the set of theoretical assumptions we adopt. Maybe it's a similar situation with absolute everything. Remember the discussion about all? I don't know. Maybe if we want to capture all in a way, we are going to also have some supposition about the set and model theoretical stuff, and we don't say that our understanding of all using the first order model logics is obviously is relative, but in a way we capture this kind of idea. Last point is maybe the metalogical problem. You know, maybe this was the most important topic that we discuss about non-classical logic in general. So the idea is, even if you are working in non-classical logic, we have to use classical logic in the meta logic. Why? Because in meta logic we use set theory and arithmetics, blah, blah, blah. And this kind of stuff obviously presuppose or use classical logic. And even our concept of validity is classical. So we have typically replied to this point, no? One option is to develop a non-classical meta language in order to say something about that. Such Weber worked a lot about this stuff. Even in Buenos Aires, we were working about a non-bivalent notion of validity in order to have this kind of stuff. In a way, you have Graham a paper about Uber logic. In a way, is a way to say we have possibility to have a non-classical notion of validity about formulas. But if we analyze the general approaches connected with that, we have to accept that in general, classical logic appear. You know, the typical answer that we gave is, obviously it's not my answer, it's not original by me. I am saying that non-classical logicians say, well, we have to discuss with classical logicians and we have to use his or their tools in order to talk, blah, blah, blah. But in a way, we are using classical logic. Well, semantic paradoxes have been clear, for me, a clear motivation to develop non-classical logic. We work a lot. However, we have not been able to avoid to talking about classical logic. In a way, but believe me, I don't know exactly what is exactly the meaning of that. In a way, there is a minimal sense in which classical logic is with us during this last year. Sorry. Thank you so much.